Yve from 90 Day Fiancé has finally filed for divorce from Mohamed. I mean, it has been a disaster from the start, but you will never believe what finally made Yve put an end to their relationship. So guys, Yve has finally filed for divorce from Mohamed, and it has honestly been a long time coming, and I actually can't believe she didn't do that sooner because there were just so much wrong with that relationship. I mean, they have had tons of problems since the very start, but recently, everything really came crashing down for them in a major way. So at first, some screenshots got leaked that revealed that Mohamed had actually been cheating on Yve, and it seems like he had, been messaging another woman, and he was actually saying a lot of pretty terrible things about Yve to her. And on top of that, you could tell from the screenshots that Mohamed's relationship with this woman was actually starting to get serious. They were even making plans, for their future together after Mohamed was going to leave Yve, and it really seemed that Mohamed was just staying with Yve so that he would get his green card, and as soon as he got it, he was going to leave Yve for the woman he was texting with. And that's actually something that we've probably all thought about, over their relationship even before all this came out. Because it always seemed to me like Mohamed was really just using Yve to get the green card, but when the messages leaked, we got actual evidence that he really was doing that. But the situation actually got even worse from there because, we all pretty much thought that Yve and Mohamed would just be over after the cheating scandal, but the drama actually wasn't over at all. Shortly after the whole thing, Yve actually got arrested, and it was a massive shock because Yve really doesn't seem like the type of person to get herself in that kind of trouble, and she was actually charged with DV and got reported by Mohamed, and Mohamed reported her right after he moved out of her house, and he told the police that Yve got physical with him when she was trying to take his phone because she wanted to read his messages. And we do know that Mohamed was cheating on Yve with someone else, and the leaked messages were pretty shocking, and those were only some of the messages between Mohamed and this other woman, so there would have probably been a lot more in there that Yve might have wanted to read, and that obviously doesn't mean it would have been okay for her to get physical with Mohamed. But Yve actually denied that she did that at all, and she said that Mohamed actually made that up as a backup option to get a different type of visa because there's now a DV trial against Yve going on, and that actually means that Mohamed can apply for a U visa because he is the victim in that trial, and it basically means he can stay in the US until the trial ends. And according to Yve, that's the real reason he reported her in the first place, which, if that was true, is actually immigration fraud. So Yve put together a legal team for her defense in the DV trial, but alongside that, she's actually apparently going to sue Mohamed for immigration fraud and to try to make sure he gets deported. And it looks like the whole legal drama was the final straw for Yve, and she finally filed for divorce. And so now, no matter how all of the trials turn out, Yve and Mohamed are done either way. And it's crazy to think that all of this was actually just the kind of last wave of problems Yve and Mohamed went through. I mean, their relationship was a complete mess pretty much from the start, and even the way they met was honestly kind of a red flag. I mean, they started messaging on Instagram after Mohamed commented on one of Yve's posts, and it was a picture of her in a bikini, and Mohamed apparently said in his comment that she looked fit for her age. And, that's just not even really a compliment at all. I mean, it's kind of backhanded, and I can't even believe it actually led to them getting married. But, there must have been something there because their relationship did develop, and Yve even went to visit Mohamed in Egypt, and that's when Mohamed proposed, and which in hindsight is also kind of a red flag. I mean, everything was just really moving way too fast, and it kind of makes it look like he might have been in it for the visa from the start. I mean, why else would he want to propose that fast to someone he barely even knew? And then, after he arrived in America, he was constantly trying to rush the wedding, and Yve wanted to take time preparing the whole thing, but Mohamed actually really hated that, and he even threatened to leave Yve and said he would find another green card sponsor if she kept delaying the wedding. And honestly, if that's not a red flag, I don't know what is. And the red flags didn't even stop there, because after Mohamed got to the US, it became obvious really quickly just how much of a cultural difference there was between him and Yve, and he expected Yve to just completely take care of him, and he was really surprised when he didn't get breakfast in the bed on his first morning in America, because back in Egypt, Mohammed's mom, I guess, was the one that did everything for him, and he expected Yve to do the same, but Yve let him know that she couldn't do that because she had to go to work, and especially since Mohammed wouldn't be able to get a job until he got work permit, so Yve actually had to earn enough money for the both of them and for her son. And Mohammed also had a problem with Yve's clothes. He expected her to start dressing more conservatively, and that caused even more issues between them because she refused to do that. And he also said that he wanted Yve to convert to Islam for him and got pretty mad when she didn't want to do that either. And that's really where their relationship should have just ended, but it just kept going. I mean, they didn't break up even after the plumber incident, and one time a plumber came to their house to install a bidet, and that's something that Mohammed wanted because he was used to having a bidet back in Egypt, and when the plumber came, Mohammed wasn't at home, and so Yve handled the whole thing, and it seems pretty standard, but Mohammed actually got really mad about it. He didn't like that Yve was alone in their house with another man, and that's just completely ridiculous because that was a contractor they hired. Nothing about that situation was weird at all, but Mohammed just wasn't okay with it, and the two of them, even had very different ideas of what they wanted from a relationship. Yve wanted Mohammed to be a stay-at-home dad for her son, Tharan, who needs full-time care, and that actually was one of the few positives of the whole story. Mohammed and Tharan actually clicked pretty well and seemed to really get along, but you have to wonder if Mohammed would even be able to take care of Tharan properly, and he struggled with even just taking care of himself when Yve refused to do everything for him. And even though they did get along, Mohammed didn't want to become a stay-at-home dad. He wanted to start working as soon as possible, and he actually expected Yve to stay at home and take care of him as well as Tharan. And Mohammed and Yve's relationship was clearly never going to work out, and it's pretty obvious that divorce was the best solution for everyone here. I mean, if they stayed together after all that, there's no way either of them would be happy. Although I'm not sure how Mohammed feels about the divorce, since it probably means he will likely get deported. It's not 100% though. I mean, we'll have to wait and see how everything works out with all the trials they have going on, but at least Yve can now finally move on and leave this part of her life behind. But what do you guys think, and what do you think is next for Yve and Mohamed, and do you think either of them will return to the show? Guys, let me know in the comments below.